Hello, 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 and welcome. I recently published a post talking about why we should rethink the so called midlife crisis. And I wanted to take the opportunity to do a deeper dive behind what I believe is the myth of the so called midlife crisis, where this term even came from, and why we should embrace it as a critical part of our life's journey. I am Nile Harris. I work with entrepreneurs, professionals, teams, organizations to gain strategic clarity, set goals, and get things done. I would love it if you would just take the opportunity right now to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the alerts so you know when I post new content, and like this video and share it. You can find me at iamnileharris.com and also I am Nile Harris on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So please, I would really appreciate if you would take a moment to do that. Now, midlife crisis. So we know midlife crisis comes about in our 30s, late 30s into the 40s. So right now, the group that's considered to be in this midlife crisis are the Gen Xers, and the elder millennials are kind of on the beginning stages, or the elder millennials, or Zennials, as they're called, the combination between Gen X and millennials. I want to talk about where this phrase started because it sheds light on why I believe that this is a myth. So this phrase was coined by a psychologist named Elliot Jack. I believe Jack is how you say his name. He gave us talk in 1957 in London. It was an audience of about 100 people. And he described this phenomenon of people reaching their midlife and having a series of reactions to that, right? It was anything, it was a long list, but it was anything from inappropriate behavior, ending marriages, to promiscuity, just this long litany of abnormal behavior. And he said that this comes about in this time of life when people start contemplating what the rest of their life is going to look like. And what he was saying was that this time of life could be very destructive, essentially, or it could be very restorative. And what I found really interesting about this little snippet of history, Elliot Jack, or Jacques, I'm not exactly sure how to say it, said that he wasn't the first person really to call this out. It appears in literature, and one of the pieces of literature that he references is the Divine Comedy. And it opens up with this character, the main character, sort of talking about his dark night of the soul, or being in a dark forest. And he's sort of in the middle of his life. And he's looking back and he's looking forward and really not sure. And as I kept reading this, it struck me as odd that Elliot Jack was in his 40s when he presented this finding. So isn't it interesting? And he reached notoriety, by the way. This, of course, since we're still saying it all these like 6 decades later, we're still using the terms midlife crisis. He obviously reached a state of notoriety around this. And I want to say that I find it interesting, and I always find it interesting, when the source of identifying the problem also becomes the source of the solution. So he said, this is a midlife crisis, and here is the solution. But is it really a crisis? And I kind of want to talk about this because as I am a Gen Xer, so that puts me pretty squarely into midlife now that I'm showing my age, I started exploring my life and where I wanted to go primarily in my career. I've always traveled and I've always done things personally that scared me, but were things that I wanted to do. I went to the Middle East. I went to Egypt. I saw Petra. Most importantly, I saw the Nile River. I've been to Peru. I did the 4-day hike to Machu Picchu. Professionally, I did what I was supposed to do. I went to college. I earned 2 degrees. I got a good job, and then I went to another good job, and then another good job, then back to school and another good job. And I stayed in that good job. And that's what we're supposed to do, right? That's the thing. But then as I decided, or as I discovered that there was more that I wanted to do professionally that would also enable more personal growth and personal development as well, I got to thinking about doing things differently. And I left that good job and I took a different path. And I felt as if I was in this midlife crisis. I felt like, oh my gosh, this is what it is, right? This is exactly what it is. This is what he's talking about. I don't know where I'm going. I've got 40 more, 50 more, 60 more years on this planet, God willing. And what am I going to do with that? And I'm looking back on my life, having some feelings about maybe I haven't accomplished everything I wanted to. And I'm looking forward, well, am I too old to accomplish the things that I wanted to? Am I not going to be accepted? That's just not normal. And as I just went on along this self-discovery, one of the things that was very interesting for me is I started to be drawn to the Om symbol. And if you're not familiar with the Om symbol or what that is, I'm going to show it right there. It is, I knew what it was. So I know it as part of Buddhism, but it does appear in other religions. So I'm really going to refer to it as part of Buddhism, but I'm just going to break it down to this system. It's part of the chakra system. So if you've heard of chakras, either you're very familiar with chakras or you've sort of heard of it and you kind of don't know what it is. I am by no means a chakra expert, or I'm not an expert in the metaphysical, but I started to explore the chakra systems as a way to help align what was going on inside of me with how I wanted that to manifest in my life. So chakra is a Sanskrit word and it means wheel or vortex or plexus. And what it represents are various centers of energy within our body. And I'm really going to high level this. There are 7, and I understand that there is some debate on if there are 6 or if there are 7, but there are 6 or 7, but I'm saying 7 because the 7th is very important to the whole purpose of this video today. So the 6 chakras represent the different wells of energy within our body. And each center of energy is responsible for driving different things. So our root chakra, our heart chakra, our third eye chakra, our crown chakra. These are all responsible for different aspects of how we experience the world. When one system is off, or when one wheel is off, and the reason why it's called a wheel or a vortex is because it is believed that the energy centers, the chakras, are in motion like a wheel or like a vortex. And if one changes, maybe one wheel stops turning or it starts turning more slowly or more quickly, it can affect the other ones. So you want to align your chakras. If you've ever heard of that phrase or understand people that do that. So the Om symbol, and I'm focusing on the Om symbol because it is the one that I was most drawn to. And it is the one that caused me to look deeper into what this system is. And the 7th chakra, the Om symbol, the crown, is up here. And it's meant to signify that you have reached enlightenment, that you have reached a spiritual awakening, that this is the point in your life when you look back and you reflect, you generate wisdom, or you come into your wisdom, right? So you're the student, now you're the teacher, or you're the master. And this just becomes very clear as you reach this stage. What I also found in my readings is that um, each chakra develops more deeply in different stages of our lives. The seventh chakra, the crown chakra, develops in midlife, and it can take about 10 years. I found different time frames, but it develops over several years. And so as you enter your midlife, your spiritual awakening starts. It is the last to develop, and it is meant to take everything that you have learned over your lifetime to this point and ascend to different levels. Now, within the seventh chakra, once you reach it, you can ascend to various heights within it, but I'm really just gonna talk about it at such a high level. I want to talk this book, Chakra Balance by April Fender. I have no association with the author or the publishing company. It's just a very good, quick book and it breaks down all of the various different chakras, different stones, essential oils. So if you're interested in learning more about chakras the way I was, I highly recommend this book called Chakra Balance by April Fender, I think is how you say her name. Why is this important? Why am I talking about chakras? I have not gotten away from the midlife crisis. I'm going to bring this home for you right now. Because when the chakra system was first developed, it was believed that it was developed somewhere between 1500 and 500 BC. Life expectancy around that time was somewhere between 30, 40, 35, 45. Basically, people reach the stage of enlightenment or the seventh chakra toward what was then the end of their life. A very natural stage to stop, reflect, look back on life. The difference is they didn't have what we have today, or as much of what we have today, which is time. We have 30, 40, 50, maybe 60 more years to go once we reach this seventh chakra, once we reach enlightenment, the spiritual awakening. So it is actually very natural, and we're programmed to reach this point. Our biology really has not kept up with the change of technology. Our biological evolution, we are still way back there. Our life expectancies have increased because of technology and medication, better healthcare, more food, less dangers, more shelter. So our lives have doubled. And now we're reaching this place of spiritual awakening or enlightenment or wisdom, and we still have like a whole other lifetime to go. And so this stage of the student becoming the teacher has kind of lengthened, right? And so we're students in our midlife, Gen Xers. We're students who've become teachers. We are embracing that teacher, and we are now moving and preparing for becoming master. We have longer lengths of time. And here's why I feel that it's a myth. This midlife crisis is a myth. The idea that we get to this point in our lives and we want to make different choices for ourselves has become abnormal when it was actually quite normal years ago, centuries ago. It was very normal to get to a stage in life where you reflected and thought, I've accomplished these things, and these are things that I still want to accomplish, and I have to change my life around a little bit to make that happen. We have become, and I think probably after the industrial age and the industrial revolution, where we've gotten a lot of technology, especially now that we have so much technology in the internet, that there's a script for our lives. We go to college, we graduate, we get a good job, we get married, we have kids, we stay in the good job, we retire, we die. That's the script. And when people want to deviate from the script, we just sort of say, it's a midlife crisis. He or she's having a midlife crisis. When in fact, it seems as if we might be biologically programmed at this point in our lives to stop and take stock. The gift we have now is the time to change that script, to change what we've been doing if we want to do something differently and move into something differently. Now, I will say this. There is a crisis that occurs. If you reach this point in your life and let's say you're not really equipped, or you don't really know, you can't really lean into it very well, or you don't know how to lean into it. I certainly did not know how to lean into it. Like I said, I was doing research and doing different readings, meditating, TED Talks, more reading, really doing this sort of exploration of the world beyond me, more so than I normally do, to find some answers. It can become a crisis if you don't know how to lean into it, or if you resist it, because what we resist persists. And if you are resisting this natural programming, this natural phase, this natural season to stop, reflect, change, it becomes a crisis. And the sort of this acting out that Elliot Jack was describing, that can happen. And we also are very judgmental to say that something is acting out when it really isn't. And I think one of the things that come to mind, or one of the stereotypical things that come to mind is, the middle-aged man who goes out and buys a Corvette. Well, what we don't know is maybe he's empty nest. The kids are gone and he saved his whole life for that car, and that's something that he wanted to do. Or the man who leaves his family and marries a woman half his age. That is destructive, but we don't know how we got there. We don't know. These things don't happen overnight. Or we look at a woman who's stayed at home with her kids for a while and wants to go back to work or wants to start a business. It's like, she must be having a midlife crisis. Well, no. She's taken stock of her life and wants to do something different with what remains of her time. Here's something else I found sort of interesting. In preparation, as I'm writing this post, I Googled midlife crisis to see what would come up. The images primarily. The images that mostly came up when I Googled midlife crisis, it was cars, young women, dressed sort of young, and that sort of images. When I Googled midlife crisis women, a lot of the images were the word menopause, or just articles that talked about menopause. So I found it interesting how midlife crisis was somehow made sexy for men, and for women it was about our biology. But I digress right there. So when we think about what makes it a crisis, it's more the reaction to this natural phase of life. And maybe someone had expressed, hey, I want to try something different, and somebody said, oh, you're having a midlife crisis. That's the part where it becomes dream snatching and soul crushing. To have pondered something about starting a business or going back to school, or taking your life in a different direction that's different from what the script says it should be. You've worked at the same company for 20 years, but you want to start your own company, or you just want to do a career change. You want to reinvent yourself. It's your right. It is really soul crushing for somebody to just sort of dismiss it and say, you're having a midlife crisis. You're not. You're in the appropriate stage of life for that internal conversation. And you have to find people who are experiencing the same thing, and having those healthy conversations and being able to work through those things. I was able to do that. I was able to talk to other people who had started businesses, but I also put time into finding those people and finding those resources, and not just throwing up my hands and saying, it's just the midlife crisis. And so I want to wrap this up by saying, um, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you're thinking that you want to do, I encourage you to research it. I encourage you to dig deeper and lean into this season that you're coming into. Don't push it away. Don't be frightened of it. It is natural. It is a natural thing that comes to all of us, no matter how successful you are. We see people who have don't even start becoming successes until they reach their 40s, right? And I want to talk about just a little bit, name a few people. Barack Obama in his 40s. Henry Ford did not start Ford Motor Company until he was in his 40s. Vera Wang, Ariana Huffington, Stan Lee. If these people were having midlife crises, sign me up. Absolutely sign me up. They took their student years and turn those into teaching years, turn those into businesses, turn those into opportunity. And then they moved into being master. It is actually, I think, healthier, more productive to society, really, to be able to take all of your learnings in that first half of your life, turn it into a business, turn it into reaching out and helping people succeed, and make the world a better place. It is actually what we're supposed to be doing. How can the world improve if we're all still just in our cubicles or in our offices doing exactly what we were doing, maybe differently, but doing exactly what we were doing since we graduated from college or graduated from high school? So lean into it. I encourage you to ditch this whole midlife crisis. And the next time you see someone who might be struggling with these questions or entering this season, you ask them. Instead of saying, "Are you having a midlife crisis?" ask them, "Is this your midlife awakening?" Ask yourself, "Is this your midlife awakening?" And when somebody comes at you and tells you that you're just having a midlife crisis, you tell them, "No, my seventh chakra is opening up." And then you just leave it at that. You let them leave it to go Google and figure out what the seventh chakra is. So that's it. I want to thank you for taking time. Again, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, share this video, share this content, come back more. I will be talking more about this and more about really attaining your goals, getting rid of fears, shedding foolishness, and really attacking your purpose with a plan.